Welcome on the Braintrain, riding the rail track from Maastricht to Amsterdam and back again, sharing ideas about how to make the world a better place to live on in 2045. We have a series of people wanting to share their practical, inspired ideas on that theme. And the next speaker is Mr. Pieter Gaillard. I have to pronounce his last name in French. And the name of his talk is Effective Brain Cancer Treatment. And he is a Chief Scientific Officer and the co-founder.
Goedemiddag dames en heren. Vandaag is hier een trein tussen Maastricht en Amsterdam Centraal, zonder coupé ingericht, de TEDx Maastricht Braintrain. Hier vertelt diverse sprekers vandaag inspirerende verhalen en ideeën die zij graag met reizigers delen. In maximaal 10 minuten maak je kennis met uiteenlopende onderwerpen. De presentatie wordt in het Engels gegeven. Heeft u zin in een bijzonder verhaal en een gesprek? Kom dan snel naar het achterste coupé beneden in de trein. Treinstelnummer 958.
Oh. No.
9574.
Yes.
9574 is het achterste treinstel. Bevindt u zich in het voorste treingedeelte 9584. Dan kunt u even van de bos overstappen en dan helemaal achterlopen om dit eventueel te ervaren.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to the Brain, and he is ready for us for his inspiring speech, inspiring talk. Pieter Gaillard. He is a Chief Scientific Officer and co-founder of a company called 2BBB. It's a biotechnology company, and Pieter is a researcher working on the so-called blood-brain barrier. The word is Pieter's. Go ahead.
"21 years ago, I was a student studying human biology, but in fact we were only partying. We had a lot of fun. We even created a new casino to be invited to all these parties and paid for it and got free drinks. So life could not be better. And one morning we were sitting in our kitchen just chatting about the evening before. And we were disturbed by a sound. Someone was knocking all the time. And we thought that was our friend upstairs trying to shut us down because we were talking too loud. So I walked up to his room to ask, and then everything changed. He wasn't calling us to shut down, he was asking for help. He had a major stroke. 27-year-old, lying on the floor, couldn't talk, would only bang on the floor. He just survived the first week. And I was sitting in the hospital bed next to him, and I had to arrange my next internship. So I had to make a call to the university. And I said, what's my subject going to be about? And can you imagine, they offered me to work in collaboration with a pharmaceutical company on a new treatment for stroke, for his disease, at his bed. So that set my brain and my heart on fire. At that time I started to study, and study hard, alone, to learn everything. How can I get medication to work in the brain? That was a very difficult task. And once I was doing that, I got another shock. I learned that new medications were not made in universities. Maybe there was good science, but they did not translate it into a new treatment. And I worked in pharmaceutical companies, and they didn't pick up all these very new things. It was too risky. So once I realized I had been working for years in the wrong place, I took that decision. I stopped my university job and I started a company. That was 14 years ago. And 14 years ago, I did not have money, I did not have a patent, I had no product, I had no experience, I didn't even have the grey hairs I have today. But what I did have was an idea and the total commitment to make it into a new product. So that's what I did. What I want to share today is how my company now makes these new kind of products, what it means for people with brain cancer and for other brain diseases like multiple sclerosis. And I'm going to ask you for your help. I will come back to that. So what we're doing as a company, and I'm going to show you a picture of our brain, but then it's brain made out of blood vessels. Look at this. You have an enormous amount of blood vessels in your brain. Hardly anyone knows that. And what these blood vessels do, they supply your brain with food and sugars. And the length of all these blood vessels is from Amsterdam to Paris. It's a very long amount, very long stretch. What these blood vessels also do is protect your brain. That's the so-called blood-brain barrier. And they protect your brain cells from everything that's not sugar and food. And they keep that out. And modern medicine don't look like sugar and they don't look like food. So they're kept out too. So how can we get that in? We cannot just shut down that barrier because it's important. It protects your brain. So what we've done is we mimic these medication as if they are sugar or food for the brain. And that way we smuggle them in. That's what we do as a technology. So how does that look like? Well, I use these candies. Not in real, of course. But what do these candies do? You all know M&Ms. M&Ms have a peanut on the inside. The peanut is the drug. But the brain doesn't like that one. So we wrap it around with a nice thick layer of chocolate so that the body likes it. It's smooth, it stays long in the body. But that's still not enough. And we have that red coating around it. And that red color coat, that's the sugar for the brain. The other colors do not get into the brain. And we have a patent on one of these red colors to get the drugs into the brain. So we made a first product out of this, and we target brain cancer. Brain cancer is a very difficult disease. It's still a deadly disease for patients. But several years ago, at least one chemotherapy came to the patients, and before every patient died within a year, and now with this one chemotherapy, about 20% of the patients have a chance to survive longer. 3 years, some even 5 years. And that is a lot of extra time for patients with such a disease. Now what we want to do is create one more of these chemotherapies to help more patients to fight their disease. So that's what my lab did. In my lab we worked on that. So this is how these red M&Ms look like once it's a pharmaceutical product. We have made a drug with that coating to get it into the brain. And this drug we have developed and even taken to patients now. It's been studied in patients with brain cancer that have no treatment option anymore. Everything failed before, and now they can take our drug. It's ongoing in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in France, and we just started even in America. And the doctors are very enthusiastic because these patients that did not have an option, a large proportion of them is starting to react. And let me give you one example. There was a lady, young lady, breast cancer, that spread to the brain. 12 prior treatments did not help her. And now for the first time, on our drug, the tumor started to respond. And she's been on treatment more than half a year. And she's still going good. So we're very happy with that. Not only for her, but also for the product. So that it can reach the next stage. The same product we try, or the same M&M's technology, we try to other drugs now as well. One of them is for multiple sclerosis. That will enter also a human study at the end of this year. And in our lab we make many more combinations to treat more brain diseases. And that's what I wanted to do for my friend. But that was already 21 years ago. But finally I've realized it. So what I'm trying to ask for you is not for money, because it's very expensive to do this. So I can never ask for money. But what I can ask is something that you help me with. But first I want to tell you, do you know how much the costs are for having brain diseases? It's $960 billion per year in Europe. So it's a huge amount of cost. But again, I'm not going to ask for money. But really you can help me by something else. If you or your loved ones are confronted with a disease, demand a cure. Demand a treatment. Many diseases are without treatment, but if you demand that, what will happen is you create a climate where it's the small innovative companies like mine that get the support to create them for you. That's my question. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yes, please, sir, go ahead. The first question to Peter is coming from a passenger. He has been with us all the way from Maastricht.
I even skipped the train.
He even skipped his train. He missed his train to be with us today. Please go ahead.
What struck me in your story, and which reminds me to my own case, I also stepped out of university to create a business, to create a new treatment. So I am in the same position like you in a different company. Is the future, like if you go to 2040, do we all have to step out of our scientific work in order to enable a better society? Do you think that's the only way we can do it?
I'll just repeat the question. The gentleman says, I recognize the story Peter is telling us today, because he also stepped out of the university world to start a company of his own. And he's asking Peter, is that the way forward, to step out of the university world, that we should all start companies, Peter?
No, not at all. I think it's a whole ecosystem. Universities do all the important work in discovering the new targets and working on them, but they're not equipped to make new drugs. And the bigger companies were always equipped to do that, but they've become too big and risk averse. So they rather wait for me to do all this and then buy it later. And they have the money and the income from their products on the market. So that's why I'm not asking for people to do that. I'm asking for people to demand treatments, because I know it's the smaller companies that will do that. And then they can get the investment and the good atmosphere to do it. And people to work there as well. Because the small companies don't have a big voice, because they're busy working and surviving. And the big companies have a voice, the universities have a voice, but the small ones, that's the voice I try to give.
So Peter wants to, wants you to help so that he is being heard, in fact. Who else wants to pose a question? Carlos, please.
Peter, when you ask for people to demand, do you also mean for people in the developing world to do it?
Definitely, everywhere. Because more ask, more demand is more, more support. And everywhere, and it should go everywhere. And maybe this is one of the big pharma hurdles. They do it, they do give that drug, but they have such a bad reputation that people don't want to see it. But the big pharma works on that as well. So there are more drugs being developed and supported in the development countries as well.
May I be as bold as to ask you a question, whether this, to what extent is this a commercial story you're telling us today, Peter?
We live in a capitalistic world. My investors, I have lots of them, do this for the money. But they don't do it for anyone. So yes, it's in the end you have to make a profitable product. This is the commercial story. My motivation not. I want to really to have new treatments.
Clear, yes.
But without money, I cannot do anything. Then I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking for a pool towards new treatments.
Is there any of you that can do anything with the question Peter's asking us today to help raise that voice for helping people with brain cancer? I see nodding faces here and there. How about you? You just entered the train here in, what was it, Roermond? Are you enjoyed so far?
Yeah, but I don't understand why everyone speaks English.
That's a good question. Why is everybody speaking English? That's because this is part of the so-called TEDx conference, and the ideas that I was spreading, we spread them on the internet as well, so that people all over the world can share it and read it and look at it. So that's why it's in English. But ladies and gentlemen, if you would rather like to ask a question in Dutch, it's okay. I will translate it into English. Have you got anything to ask? No?
I have a question.
You have a question, please. You ended with a bicycle in Eindhoven.
I did. Yeah, my question is that you say that as a small player in like the pharmaceutical world, you don't really have a voice, and only universities and big pharmaceutical companies have a voice. But then you ask us, like individuals, to demand medication or demand treatment. But how do you expect us, or how would you tell us to speak up, or how can we play a role in this?
How would you, what would the gentleman here is asking, what do you actually want us to do? What practical thing would you like us to do?
Well, if you're in a situation that there's no cure for your disease, no treatment, you can accept and believe that's the case and wait until it maybe comes. But it can take 20 years or more. And what you can also do is, what does it take to get there? Where is it needed? Just asking the questions. And asking the questions, like I say, demanding. I want a cure, I want it. And I see many people around me who were suffered, who were struck by a disease and were wealthy enough. They get it, and they create it, and they create movements. But the more people ask that, and reach out and talk about it at schools, talk about it wherever you are, that you want something to change. You change the political agenda, you change the public opinion, that you don't just accept that that's not there yet. And that will automatically give a push.
Does anyone maybe here on this brain train know anyone with brain cancer? Yes, you do. Are you satisfied with the treatment that person is getting, or is he or she actually longing for Pieter's initiative?
It's very recent, so it was a superficial malignant cancer, so he was operated actually 2 days ago. So we have to just wait and see how it will develop and which kind of chemo we can. He will receive chemo as well as radiotherapy, but it's too early to say whether that will be successful.
Gentleman here is explaining, I know a person who has brain cancer, but he has just been under surgery 2 days ago, so it's too early to say whether he will need Pieter's initiative. We are almost in, help me please, Herzogenbosch. And thank you very much, Pieter. Give him a big hand. Thank you for joining us here on the Brain Train, sharing ideas to make the world a better place in 2045. If you leave us in Den Bosch, have a very nice day, and thank you for being here. Up next is Diederik Stapel. Please stay with us to hear his interesting story, but it's after Den Bosch, so you can just... you may go over there, yes, certainly. And make some room for new people to enter the train, please. So if the organization of Brain Train will please step out of the room for 2 minutes, so let